Laughing at Midnight follows a struggling group of comedians fighting to save their beloved but dying comedy club, the Punchline, in gritty New York City. Max, a guarded leader hiding behind sarcasm, battles self-doubt while trying to hold the troupe together. Jenna, vibrant and hopeful despite heartbreak, clashes with Eliot, a once great comic turned cynical loner. Maya keeps the club alive behind the scenes, while Tony masks insecurity with slapstick charm. As eviction looms and rivalries explode, their dreams teeter on collapse. Yet through failure, conflict, and vulnerability, they rediscover the power of laughter and the family they never meant to build. The Punchline's neon sign buzzed and flickered against the overcast New York sky, its red and blue glow stuttering like a heartbeat on the edge of collapse. Rain slicked the cracked pavement below, reflecting the unstable light and shimmering puddles. A few souls, braving the chill, approached the narrow entrance, drawn by the promise of laughter in a city that seemed to forget its punchlines more often than not. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of stale beer and worn upholstery. The low murmur of conversation mingled with the clatter of glasses and the occasional burst of nervous laughter. Behind the bar, Tony Rousseau, a stocky man with a perpetual baseball cap turned backwards, juggled empty bottles with exaggerated flair, eliciting groans and chuckles from the small crowd. His slapstick antics were a staple, a physical punctuation to the verbal jabs flying on stage. Backstage, Max Harper hunched over a battered notebook, his pen scratching furiously as he chased elusive punchlines. His dark hair was tousled, as if perpetually tousled by city winds, and the worn leather jacket he wore seemed less a fashion choice and more a security blanket. Max was the de facto leader of this ragtag troupe, his wit sharp but his heart guarded. He paused, reading a joke aloud in a low voice, then crossed it out with a frustrated sigh. The pressure to keep the punchline afloat weighed heavily on him, a constant hum beneath every quip. Jenna Lee burst through the backstage door in a whirlwind of color scarves, mismatched socks, and a smile wide enough to light up the darkest room. Her short curly hair bounced with every step, and her laughter was infectious, slicing through the tension like a sudden summer breeze. Jenna was the rising star, the peacemaker, the spark that kept the group's fragile hope from burning out. She flung an arm around Max's shoulder, pulling him from his scribbles. "Come on, Max. Tonight's the night. We remind them why the punchline still matters," she said, her voice bright but tinged with the fatigue of overcommitment. Max gave a sardonic laugh, the sound rough but genuine. "If by remind you mean bomb spectacularly, then yeah, we're on track." Eliot Brooks leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, watching the exchange with a dry smile. Tall and lean, he dressed down in simple tees and jeans, his demeanor guarded and sarcastic. Once a rising star in the comedy circuit, Eliot now carried the weight of past flops and heartbreaks like a second skin. He lit a cigarette, the smoke curling lazily toward the ceiling. "You're too hard on yourself, Max," Eliot said, voice low and deadpan. "Besides, failure's just a stepping stone to oblivion." Jenna rolled her eyes but couldn't suppress her grin. Always the optimist. From the corner, Maya Sanchez, the club's manager, surveyed the scene with a clipboard clutched tightly in one hand and a phone wedged between shoulder and ear. Her short bobbin glasses lent her a no-nonsense air, but her eyes softened as she watched the troupe. Maya balanced the impossible keeping the club's finances afloat while nurturing the fragile morale of the comedians. Tonight, she was negotiating with a vendor about overdue payments, her voice steady despite the tightrope she walked. "We need to keep tonight's crowd happy," she said firmly into the phone. "No more delays on the shipment, or we're sunk. The group gathered in the cramped green room, a space just big enough for a handful of nervous souls. Posters of past shows, yellowed and peeling, lined the walls, a testament to glory days now distant. The air buzzed with a cocktail of anticipation and dread. "All right," Max said, standing and pacing. "The Punchline is on life support, and we're the doctors with rusty tools. We've got one shot to prove we're not done yet." Jenna nodded, eyes bright. "We'll bring the laughs, the crowd, and maybe a little magic." Her smile faltered for a moment, revealing the exhaustion underneath. Eliot exhaled smoke and shrugged. "Magic's in short supply these days. But hell, we'll make do." Tony clapped a heavy hand on Max's shoulder. "We got this. We're family, right?" Maya smiled faintly, closing her phone. "Family or not, we need a plan." As the first notes of a melancholy jazz tune drifted from the bar's speakers, the troupe prepared to take the stage. The Punchline's flickering neon sign outside was more than a warning, it was a challenge. Could a motley crew of misfit comedians keep their sanctuary alive against the city's indifferent tide? The door swung open, and the night began. Max stepped onto the stage, the spotlight harsh and blinding. The room quieted, the few patrons leaning forward expectantly. He cleared his throat, his voice steady but carrying the weight of countless self-doubts. "So, you ever notice how New York is the only place where you can get lost and found in the same block?" He paused for effect, scanning the faces before him. A few tentative chuckles, encouraging enough. "Yeah, I once got lost on my way to a family dinner. My mother still thinks I'm in Queens somewhere, avoiding her." Laughter grew, warmer now. Backstage, Jenna paced, biting her lip. Eliot smoked silently, a ghost of a grin tugging at his lips. Maya monitored the bar, calculating the dwindling cash flow in her mind. Tony bounced in place, ready for his turn, a goofy grin plastered across his face. The night wore on with a patchwork of jokes, some landing, others flopping spectacularly. The club's future was uncertain, but for these few hours, the Punchline was alive. Outside, the neon sign buzzed and flickered, stubbornly refusing to go dark. The Punchline's neon sign sputtered feebly against the night sky. Its electric hum, a tired soundtrack to another precarious evening in the life of the club. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of stale beer, cigarettes, and the faint, lingering sweetness of spilled popcorn. The worn wooden floor creaked underfoot as patrons shuffled in, each drawn by the flicker of promise and the hope of laughter amid the uncertainty. Tonight was an open mic night, a chaotic mix of hopes and nerves, with the troupe at the heart of the storm. Backstage, Max Harper sat hunched over a battered notebook, his pen scratching hurriedly across the pages. His messy dark hair fell into his eyes as he tried to steady his breathing. The familiar, sardonic laugh caught somewhere deep in his throat. He was the reluctant leader tonight, the de facto captain of a ship struggling to stay afloat. The weight of the club's future pressed down on him, heavier than the leather jacket he wore like armor. Self-doubt gnawed at the edges of his confidence, though his sharp observational humor was ready to be unleashed. "Max, you're up in 5, Maya Sanchez called softly from the side, her voice calm and steady. The club manager was a grounding force in the chaos, her short bobbin glasses making her look both approachable and authoritative. She had the impossible task of keeping the club running, balancing budgets and tempers with equal skill." Max nodded, swallowing the lump in his throat. "Got it." On the stage, Jenna Lee was already warming up the crowd. Her short, curly hair bounced as she moved energetically, colorful outfits brightening the dim room. Her laughter was infectious, ringing out clear and easy, even as she juggled the dual pressures of hosting the night and preparing for her own set. Jenna's optimism was a flame flickering against the encroaching darkness, but even she felt the strain of overcommitting. "All right, folks, welcome to the Punchline," Jenna announced, her voice carrying through the small room. "Grab a drink, find a seat, and let's see who's brave enough to make you laugh tonight." The audience responded with polite applause and a few cheers, the nervous energy palpable. Tony Russo, stocky and sporting his trademark backwards baseball cap, was bouncing between tables, offering a boisterous hello and the occasional slapstick pratfall that drew chuckles from the regulars. His physical comedy was a staple, though tonight the laughter felt tentative, as if waiting for something more. As the open mic began, the variety of comedic styles was on full display. Max's set was sharp, his quick thinking and observational humor cutting through the tension. Yet beneath the jokes was a palpable anxiety, a fear that every punchline might be the last chance to prove himself. The audience laughed, but the applause was measured, the fragile state of the club reflected in their cautious response. Jenna's turn followed, her charisma lighting up the stage. She spun stories of identity and dreams with wit and warmth, yet backstage, a glance revealed her exhaustion. The laughter she drew was genuine, but the pace she set was relentless, pushing herself harder than was sustainable. Eliot Brooks took the stage next, his tall, lean frame silhouetted against the dim spotlight. Dressed simply in a tee and jeans, he exuded a dry, sarcastic charm. His deadpan delivery scored hits, but the occasional pause revealed a man wrestling with detachment. The cigarette dangling from his lips was as much a prop as a shield, curling smoke weaving through his words like a veil. The mood shifted when Derek Fields, a rival comic from a nearby club, strode in late, his slick confidence a jarring contrast to the punchline's worn edges. His mocking applause was sharp and deliberate, a reminder that external competition was as fierce as internal struggles. Derek's presence stoked tensions within the troupe, a quiet challenge to their unity. The night spiraled into a mix of laughter and awkward failures. Bombed sets punctuated the evening, the sting of public humiliation piercing the fragile morale. Jenna and Eliot's rivalry simmered beneath the surface, their differing styles and ambitions clashing in subtle jabs and exchanged glances. Max tried to hold the group together, but his tendency to push others away made the task heavier than ever. Backstage, Maya soothed frayed nerves and balanced the club's fragile finances, her pragmatic care a lifeline. Tony's attempts at physical comedy elicited a few laughs, but failed to mask his growing insecurities. The troupe's bonds were tested, the night revealing cracks even as it underscored their shared passion. As the final act stumbled and laughter faded into uneasy murmurs, Max lingered at the edge of the stage, the weight of the club's uncertain future pressing down. The punchline's flickering neon sign outside seemed to echo his doubts. But beneath it all was a stubborn hope or belief that the next laugh might just be the one to save them all. "We'll get there," Max murmured to himself, the words of fragile promise in the dim light. "We have too." And as the crowd filtered out into the cold New York night, the echoes of laughter and the hope for more lingered in the air, fragile but unbroken. Max Harper sat alone at the back corner of the punchline, the worn leather jacket hanging loosely on his frame as his fingers danced hurriedly across the pages of a battered notebook. The dim light flickered intermittently above, casting shadows that played tricks on the peeling wallpaper and uneven floorboards. Beyond the cracked window, the city's restless hum seeped in distant sirens. A late-night saxophone solo from a nearby street, the occasional shout from a passerby. Yet, inside this fragile sanctuary of fading dreams, Max wrestled with memories more turbulent than the city outside. His pen scraped against paper as he tried to capture the gnawing weight in his chest. The words that came were sharp, observational, a hallmark of his style. But tonight, they tasted bitter, laced with an ache he rarely let surface. The strained phone calls from his family, the sharp disappointment in his father's voice when he chose comedy over a real career, the silence from his mother that spoke louder than any argument. These ghosts haunted him, fueling a fear that one misstep here wouldn't just close the club, but also confirm his worst fears about himself. As Max scribbled, fragments of a recent argument with his father replayed in his mind. "You think this joke business will pay the bills?" his father had said, voice tight with frustration. "Maybe it's time you grew up." That sentence had sliced through him, but tonight it also ignited a fierce resolve. Saving the Punchline was more than salvaging a building. It was reclaiming his identity, proving that his dreams mattered. Across the club, Jenna Lee paced nervously backstage, her short, curly hair bouncing with each breathless step. Her bright, colorful outfit clashed with the muted hues of the brick wall behind her, a visual metaphor for her turbulent state. Jenna's laughter, usually effortless and infectious, felt brittle tonight. She ran through her set in her head, trying to infuse humor into the rawness of her recent breakup, but each punchline risked falling flat under the weight of her emotions. She paused, fingers trembling slightly as she clutched the microphone stand. The echo of her ex's last words, dismissive, cold, lingered like a shadow. Comedy had always been Jenna's sanctuary, a place where she could shape her story on her own terms. But now, she questioned whether the pain was too fresh, whether her voice could still shine through the heartbreak. Yet, beneath the uncertainty, a flicker of determination burned. She was here to fight for herself, for her friends, and for the Punchline. In a quieter corner, Eliot Brooks slouched on a battered couch, the smoke from his ever-present cigarette curling lazily toward the ceiling. His tall, lean frame seemed almost swallowed by the threadbare cushions, a physical manifestation of the weariness gnawing at him. His dry, sarcastic remarks were his shield, a way to keep the world at arm's length. Tonight, however, his usual biting humor softened as he tossed a joke toward Maya, the club's manager, who sat nearby, her eyes warm with concern. "I'm telling you, Maya," he drawled, voice low but edged with something less cynical, "if this place closes, I might have to actually get a real job." "Can you imagine that?" Maya smiled faintly, shaking her head. "We're not giving up yet, Eliot. Not on my watch." The cigarette smoke mingled with the faint aroma of stale beer and old wood, the scent of a place that had seen better days, but still held stories worth fighting for. Eliot's guarded demeanor hinted at the cracks forming in his armor, the possibility of rediscovering the joy that once fueled his career. Meanwhile, in the cramped office that doubled as the club's financial nerve center, Maya Sanchez sifted through a mountain of bills and receipts. Her short bob framed a face etched with worry lines, yet softened by a resolute calm. The glow of a solitary desk lamp illuminated the papers as she adjusted her glasses and scribbled numbers. Every late payment, every overdue notice was a small battle in the war to keep the Punchline afloat. Tony Russo burst into the room with his usual boisterous energy, the baseball cap on his head turned backwards, as always. His stocky frame carried a physical comedy charm, and tonight, his jokes landed with better timing than his recent slapstick attempts on stage. "Hey Maya," Tony grinned, dropping a fist bump on the desk. "If we don't make it, I'm gonna haunt this place as a ghost comedian. Bet I'll be the funniest spirit you ever saw." Maya chuckled, the tension easing for a moment. Keep dreaming, Tony. But thanks for the laugh. These moments of camaraderie were fragile but vital. The glue holding together a group frayed by personal demons and external threats. The club's survival wasn't just a financial calculation, it was a testament to their shared resilience. Later that evening, as the troupe gathered for a brief meeting, Max finally broke the silence that had long hung between them. His voice was quieter than usual, tinged with vulnerability. "I know I've been pushing everyone away," he admitted. "But this place, this family, it's all I've got. I'm scared, yeah, but I want to fight. Not just for the club, but for all of us." Jenna nodded, her eyes shining with unshed tears. "I'm scared too, but maybe that's what makes us stronger. We've all got our pain, our doubts. Maybe that's the comedy, finding the light in the dark." Eliot exhaled a plume of smoke, a rare softness in his gaze. "I'm in, for the laughs, for the fight, for whatever's left of us." Maya smiled, feeling the weight of their words settle into a fragile hope. "Then let's get to work." As the night deepened, the group dispersed into the quiet hum of the city beyond. Each carried their burdens, fears, regrets, hopes, but also a new sense of purpose. The Punchline was more than a club. It was their dream, their refuge, their proving ground, and they were not ready to let it go. The flickering neon outside buzzed softly, its uncertain glow a beacon for those who dared to dream against the odds. But as dawn approached, the question lingered in the cool air. Could they turn their dreams into reality before the lights went out for good? The night had been long, but the fight was just beginning. The Punchline's back room was a chaos of clatter and clamor, a microcosm of the club's precarious state. Around a scarred wooden table, cluttered with coffee cups, crumpled napkins, and half-eaten sandwiches, the troupe sat in a haphazard circle, faces lit by the yellow glow of an overhead lamp that buzzed faintly. The air was thick with a mixture of stale smoke and desperation. Max Harper raked a hand through his messy dark hair, eyes sharp but weary. "We need something big," he said, voice low but urgent. "Themed nights, guest stars, viral stunts, whatever it takes." Jenna Lee bounced slightly in her chair, her short curls catching the light as she leaned forward. "What about a comedy through the decades night? We dress up, do sets inspired by different eras. It's fun, it's fresh, it's something people can Instagram." Eliot Brooks, tall and lean in his plain tee and jeans, exhaled a plume of smoke from his cigarette and scoffed. "Great, because nothing says save the club like a bunch of amateurs playing dress-up." "Come on, Eliot," Jenna shot back, her eyes flashing. "Maybe if you stopped being such a downer, you'd see the potential." The tension between them was palpable, a simmering undercurrent that had become all too familiar. Max tried to mediate, but his own frustration made it hard to find the right words. Maya Sanchez, the club's manager and emotional anchor, sat quietly at the side, her glasses slipping down her nose as she reviewed the dwindling ledger of finances. Tony Russo, stocky and wearing his usual backwards baseball cap, paced the room, occasionally throwing out slapstick suggestions that earned half-hearted chuckles. Just as Max was about to propose a compromise, Maya's phone buzzed. She glanced down, her face tightening. "It's here," she said softly, holding up a crisp white envelope. The room fell silent. "Victor Crane's legal team. They're moving forward with eviction proceedings. We've got 30 days. A collective breath was sucked in. The Punchline's fate had never felt more real, more imminent. Max's eyes darkened. "We're not going down without a fight," he declared, "but we have to get our act together fast." The next hours passed in a blur of ideas, some brilliant, others desperate. Jenna and Eliot's rivalry flared anew, each pushing harder to claim the spotlight, to prove their worth not just to the audience, but to themselves. Max struggled to keep the group united, his usual sardonic humor giving way to a rare vulnerability, as he confessed his fears of losing the club that had become his second home. Maya worked tirelessly behind the scenes, balancing calls with lawyers and potential sponsors, while Tony's slapstick routines brought brief moments of levity that reminded everyone why they loved what they did despite the odds. Yet the shadow of Victor Crane loomed large, his cold eyes and sharp suits a constant reminder that progress and profit threatened to erase their world. As the night deepened, the troupe found themselves standing at a crossroads. Their dreams and friendships were on the line, tested like never before. Could they channel their frustrations into fuel, their rivalry into collaboration? The Punchline flickered outside, its neon sign sputtering uncertainly, a beacon of both hope and fragility. In the end, the chapter closed not with resolution, but with a question hanging thick in the smoky air. Could laughter truly be enough to save a dream when the very ground beneath it was being ripped away? The answer, like the punchline of a difficult joke, was still out of reach, waiting for its moment to land. And as Max scribbled furiously in his battered notebook, searching for the words that might hold them together, the city outside pulsed with indifferent life funnyware, perhaps of the small battleground glowing faintly beneath one flickering neon light. The Punchline's battered neon sign flickered erratically as dusk seeped into the New York City streets, casting a weary blue glow over the club's peeling facade. Inside, the air was thick with cigarette smoke and the faint scent of stale beer. Tonight's open mic was supposed to be the lifeblood of the struggling venue, a chance for the troupe to remind the city why the Punchline still mattered. Instead, it was shaping up to be a night to forget. Tony Russo bounded onto the stage first, his usual boisterous grin faltering under the weight of the sparse crowd. His routine an elaborate physical comedy bit involving a fake slip and a juggling act with rubber chickens began with a clumsy confidence. But as the minutes dragged on, the laughter grew thin, replaced by uncomfortable silence and shifting feet. The spotlight flickered above him, spotlighting his red face as he struggled to salvage the set. Backstage, Max Harper's hands trembled as he flipped through his battered notebook, the pages filled with scribbled observations and half-formed jokes. The muffled groans and scattered chuckles from the stage clawed at his confidence. He forced himself to breathe, trying to summon the sharp wit and quick thinking that had once been his armor. But tonight, the mask of sardonic control felt heavier than ever. Jenna Lee paced nervously just beyond the curtain, her colorful outfit a stark contrast to the club's grim ambience. Her usual infectious laughter was subdued, replaced by a tight-lipped focus. She knew the stakes were high, not just for the club, but for herself. Balancing ambition with the recent sting of a breakup, she was desperate to prove her voice mattered. As Tony's set floundered, she clenched her fists, ready to step up and shift the night's momentum. Eliot Brooks lounged in the shadows near the bar, a cigarette dangling from his fingers. His dry, sarcastic commentary had earned him a reputation, but tonight even his usual deadpan delivery felt tired. He was guarded, retreating into cynicism to mask the creative burnout gnawing at him. The weight of past failures and a high-profile flop loomed large, and the pressure to reclaim his confidence was suffocating. The night spiraled quickly, as more performers bombed spectacularly forgotten punchlines. Awkward pauses and misplaced jokes, the fragile morale of the Punchline's troupe began to crack. Whispers and frustrated glances exchanged backstage grew louder. The audience, once eager, now shifted restlessly in their seats, their enthusiasm fading like the sputtering neon outside. Midway through the chaos, Jenna's patience snapped. As Eliot took the stage for his set, the tension between them was palpable. His cutting sarcasm clashed with her vibrant optimism, a rivalry simmering beneath the surface for weeks. When Eliot's delivery took a bitter tone aimed at the club's struggling state, Jenna interrupted, stepping forward with a sharp retort that stunned the room. "Maybe if you stopped acting like the world owed you a comeback, Eliot, you'd remember why we're all here," she said, voice ringing clear in the sudden silence. The confrontation laid bare their frustrations and fears, the audience caught in the charged moment. Backstage, Max felt the sting of Jenna's words and the weight of his own insecurities pressing down. His fear of failure gnawed at him, threatening to unravel the fragile threads holding the troupe together. Maya Sanchez, ever the pragmatic manager, moved swiftly through the chaos, fielding calls, calming tempers, and juggling the club's precarious finances. Her exhaustion was evident, but so was her unwavering resolve. Tony returned to the wings, his usual bravado diminished. His slapstick routine's failure echoed in his mind, deepening his insecurities about his place in the comedy world. The night's disasters left the troupe fractured and vulnerable, the dream of saving the Punchline slipping further from reach. As the final act stumbled to a close and the last patrons filtered out into the cold city night, the comedians gathered in a tense silence. The sting of public humiliation mingled with raw personal frustrations. Yet amid the broken bonds and battered spirits, a flicker of determination remained. They had faced their worst and, somehow, still clung to the fragile hope that laughter could heal what was broken. Max finally closed his notebook with a sigh, meeting Jenna's and Eliot's eyes. The unspoken question hung in the air. Could they find a way back from this low point? Could their shared passion and humor withstand the pressure and pain? The Punchline's neon sign buzzed faintly outside, flickering uncertainly, a mirror to their battered but unbroken hearts. The night had been a disaster, but the fight was far from over. And somewhere in the shadows of broken jokes and fractured friendships, the seed of resilience was quietly taking root. As the troupe dispersed for the night, Max lingered by the stage, the battered notebook clutched tightly. "Tomorrow," he whispered to himself, "we try again." Outside, the city pulsed with its relentless rhythm, indifferent yet full of possibility. And somewhere in its heart, the Punchline flickered on, waiting for its next laugh.